Endeavor Horizons of the Infinite, Episode 12. Endeavor to Take a Vacation, Part 2. By Elton Gar. Regan ducked behind a wall as gunfire struck the metal of the simulated space station. A robot, dressed like a 200-year-old space station guard, said,
"Halt, criminals!"
The only certain way she knew the simulation would end was to complete the story. And if they had taken time to read the full description before entering the simulation, they would know what that was. But all they knew was that realism mode had disabled all the safety protocols. What made it worse was Alonzo panicking. But so far, he had followed her basic orders. But other than that, his only thought was getting to the door and forcing it open to escape.
"We need a weapon,"
Regan said, as they ducked around the corner, and she saw another nearly identical robot dressed as station security, forcing them to switch directions.
Those are refurbished Parallax M17 drones. The M stands for military. We'd need a plasma pistol to destroy one,
Alonzo said.
"Sure, but they're programmed to be human security officers in the simulation. And I think they're playing by the rules of a bad action movie. That means we can shut them down by anything that would stop a human,"
Regan said.
Right. Humans are weak systems, easy to break.
While he was trying to convince himself, Regan saw the entrance to a bar. If they went in, they could be cornered, but it was their best option. There was a less advanced robot dressed in a badly fitting brown business suit sitting at the bar. He didn't react as a shot hit the bar and a bottle exploded a few feet from him. Military robots didn't miss, so she assumed they were programmed with bad aim, like the villains in a movie. But she still ducked behind the bar where Alonzo was already sitting, his hands over his head. As she waited for the robots to approach, she saw a weapon. There were several pool sticks on the wall. In reality, it wasn't much of a weapon, but in movie logic they should work. So she crawled over to them and grabbed two, tossing one to Alonzo. With his hands covering his head, he didn't see it until it hit him, but then he held it more like a security blanket than a weapon. Well, he might hit something with it if they got too near.
"Surrender,"
the guard said, and before she had the chance, there was another shot. She considered the offer. If they were captured, the simulation might end. But the heroes never surrendered to the first goons. And she didn't know how they'd react. So she grabbed one of the pool balls and threw it. The red ball flew better than she expected. The two burned into her mind as it spun, hitting the robot in the head. It grabbed its head but didn't go down. But the gun wasn't pointed at her anymore, so she rushed him before the other guard could join them. Regan held the cue more like a lance than a club. Perhaps she should take Commander Hester or Mick up on the offer for combat training. The tip of the cue hit the guard in the stomach. If it had actually been a human, that would have done some damage. But while it was playing the part of an incompetent human security officer, physically it was still a military-grade combat robot. So the cue snapped and the now sharp end slid downward. After just long enough to register what it was supposed to do, the robot crumpled to the floor, groaning in pain. As Regan bent down to grab the gun, she got a glimpse of Alonzo, who swung his pool cue at the second guard who had got there faster than Regan expected. The robot stood there a second, then stiffly fell over.
"Thanks,"
Regan said, more impressed than she should be by someone not panicking. She then handed him the gun, grabbed the other, and started to run to look for another hiding spot. But rather than follow, Alonzo moved over to the wall, went down to one knee, and began to work on something. It took a moment for Regan to recalibrate. It felt like they had been running across the station for hours, but they had also been in a small room filled with projections designed to make it feel like they were exploring the station.
"There will be more guards coming,"
Regan said. The robots were currently on the ground, but they weren't damaged. They were just playing their part, and once the scene was over, they'd play another part. And in movie logic, a more dangerous character.
Delay them if you can. I'm getting out of here.
Alonzo said. That was easier said than done, but he was probably right. The longer they waited, the more likely it was that one of them got killed. So she decided on a plan that might work in the action movies this simulation was based on. 3 more guards appeared, each a 7-foot-tall, 2-ton military robot in a retro guard's uniform. Shooting them would have kept them away. But it could end the scene. If it did, the robots they had already disabled would return to action. So instead, she pointed her gun at the guy sitting at the bar. He looked at her, then without missing a beat, took another sip of beer. She said,
"Stop or I shoot him."
The 3 guards stopped, and the man at the bar took another sip of beer. Then she said,
"How long do you need?"
I've got the panel open. I just need to bypass the lock, trigger the opening mechanism, and, if they don't have a failsafe, about a minute.
That was faster than she expected, and twice as long as she expected to delay the guards with a hostage. And as the 3 guards began to spread out, that estimate went down. But she had committed. And telling Alonzo to hurry risked him panicking again, so she fired. The recoil was more than she expected, but one of them went down. And the others started shooting. The first shot hit the robot Regan was holding hostage. That reminded her the safeties were off, and if she made it too easy, she'd get hit. So she ducked behind the bar and said,
"It's time to go."
I'm just rerouting the power to. Got it.
He said, and there was a loud click and the slight hiss of the door opening. Regan didn't wait. She stood, shot twice in the general direction of the approaching robots, and rushed out the door. Alonzo followed and began to smile as he walked towards the airlock and began the sequence to open the door to leave the Parallax ship. Regan was ready to get off, hopefully before Parallax realized they had hacked the system to access the beta programs. But as she glanced back in, she saw the robots moving towards the door.
"They're still following us,"
Regan said, rushing towards the airlock. Alonzo looked back and said,
We didn't trigger the end of scenario function because we hacked the door. As far as the robots are concerned, we're still in the simulation.
"What does that mean?"
Regan asked. The airlock began to open, and as he moved through, Alonzo said,
They don't care if we escaped. They'll keep chasing us until the scenario is done.
"I'm pretty sure the end is when we go down in a hail of gunfire."
Regan said, as a bullet hit the wall of the station a few inches above her head. Tabitha had barely got off the Endeavour and was already looking for something to do. She had never done well with downtime, and here the only people to distract her from having nothing to do were a few dozen engineers, a couple of thousand robots designed to build ships, and the Endeavour crew. Most of the crew didn't like her, and they were all under her command. So she had walked around the shipyard space station for about an hour. And it technically wasn't the Endeavour, though both had been built by Parallax robots, so you could barely tell. She had then visited the Helix offices to see if there was anything there for her, and finally she gave up and decided to check on the captain's meeting. She felt stupid as she knocked on the door. He was an adult and her commanding officer. He didn't need her to babysit him, but he was also taking all the blame for the damage to the Endeavour. According to him, it was his ship and everything was his responsibility. That wasn't anything anyone else she knew would have said, since it had been her order that got them stuck inside the anomaly. There was no answer, but the light above the door of the meeting room turned from red to green. Tabitha opened the door and stepped in quietly. The captain was facing a screen that covered the wall. There was a line of men in expensive suits on the screen. She stepped out of the way of the camera, but a corporate executive said,
Another interruption, Mr. Watt.
Captain Watt.
Tabitha said, barely thinking about who she was correcting, then realized that may not be accurate. The corporations could remove him from command anytime they wanted. If they did, she would be in charge of the endeavor and was likely to remain in charge. That would raise her profile in Helix Dynamics to near executive level.
Yes. Captain, for now, would you care to explain who is interrupting us?
She's my first officer, and presumably she's finishing up her duties and passing on the information so she can go on her vacation.
She had passed on the information to Lieutenant Mercer, who was getting the chance to gain some command experience. She wasn't sure how much commanding a ship moored in dry dock was worth, but she respected the ambition.
We will give you a moment, but I'm adding this time to the end of the meeting.
The executive said. The screen went off, and the captain said,
Well, so much for my coffee break. How can I help you, Commander?
That was what I was here to find out, but it appears someone else was already here.
Tabitha said, glancing at the half-eaten salad and 2 cups of coffee. She could only assume it had been brought by Regan, who had took on the job of captain's yeoman on top of her duties as a pilot.
Yes. It was odd. The chaplain came by, which I suppose isn't surprising. He brought me a coffee and some food from the station. Tastes as bad as the coffee on the Endeavor, but different, which is almost like being on a vacation.
And what about the salad?
That's the oddest thing. The doctor brought that. She said something about it looking bad on her record if I die.
Tabitha chuckled and said,
Well, she isn't wrong, though a few months ago I'm not sure she would have cared if it hurt her career, if it got her off the Endeavor. Still, I am concerned Regan hasn't been here. I assure you she isn't busy doing anything exciting on this station.
The last time we left her alone, she tried to get killed by pirates.
The captain said.
I'll locate her. She probably locked herself in a room somewhere, and the robots aren't programmed to let her out. Besides, I was going to wander the station aimlessly anyway.
Tabitha said. Her plan had been to find a gym, but she could get her exercise while locating Regan.
If I didn't know better, I'd think you liked the ensign.
The captain said.
It would look bad on my record if she dies.
Tabitha said. Then as she walked out she said,
I'll notify you when I locate her.
The captain nodded, looked at the door longingly, and then turned the meeting back on. Tabitha considered her conversation with the captain. The smart thing to do was to let him sink. As she tried to understand why she hadn't, a robot approached her. It said,
Would you care to test the Parallax Mirage entertainment system?
You mean the one that spies on you, uses your image without your permission, then tries to kill you?
Tabitha asked.
It has been refined considerably from the earlier trials. Besides, it would hardly be a threat to someone as enhanced as yourself.
Tabitha took a couple of steps past the robot, then realized that testing Mirage might be appealing if you didn't bother to find out how Parallax used it. And it was the exact type of thing an ensign, looking for a way to enjoy their vacation, might visit. So she took an access card from the robot and began moving towards that airlock. She made it to the docking area of the station when Regan and Alonzo ran past her. As they passed, Regan raised an antique gun and fired at 5 combat drones dressed in long coats, hats, and sunglasses that were following with similarly absurd weapons.
Ensign, would you care to explain how you're being attacked by 5 combat drones and not already dead?
We hacked the Mirage door system to escape, but they followed us.
Alonzo said.
The safety is off, but they still think they're the henchmen in a terrible movie.
Regan said, and shot one of the combat robots which stood there for about half a second, then dramatically clutched its chest and fell over. Tabitha didn't bother to ask any more questions. The solution was obvious, so she took the weapon from Alonzo. The engineer could barely do his job in an emergency. If he wasn't one of the best engineers she had ever met, she'd have already replaced him. The combat drones fired, and Regan was right. Real combat drones were deadly shots, but these missed. Their programming had been altered for the Mirage simulation. So she lifted the gun and fired. The recoil suggested real bullets. Deadly for a human, but it wouldn't even scratch a combat robot. Each of them went down with a single shot.
Don't shoot them all,
Regan said as Tabitha shot the last one.
Care to explain, Ensign?
Tabitha said.
If you kill all of them, they'll move on to the next scene. And in movie logic, that means the stakes get raised,
Regan said.
And the robots will become more competent henchmen.
Tabitha said. She was catching up, but there clearly wasn't time, so she said.
Ensign, you clearly understand the situation better than me. Please take command until you can debrief me fully.
What?
Regan asked.
Take the lead, Ensign.
Tabitha said.
Right? The story was about communists taking command of the space station's command center. The next logical scene would be on the command center,
Regan said.
I do not believe it is wise to lead combat drones to the command center of this station. The drones that run this station are made by the same corporation as Mirage, and likely programmed to defend Parallax property,
Tabitha said, as the combat drones began to stand up. The next scene would start soon. She saw Regan consider that and then said,
They don't care if it's actually the command center. They're basically just actors.
Turning, she ran towards one of the storage rooms. Tabitha hoped the ensign had a good idea, because there was only one way in. Once inside, Regan said,
Alonzo, go sit behind those boxes. As far as you're concerned, it's an engineering station.
He didn't say anything, but he followed the order. Then Regan said,
Commander, I'm going to hold you hostage. When the time is right, you disarm me and capture us. I'll make it easy for you. Presumably the robots won't shoot us once we're captured, that end the simulation.
You can't be certain that the scenario isn't programmed to end with your deaths,
Tabitha said, not bothering to tell the ensign she didn't need to make it easy.
Either way, no one else gets hurt,
Regan said, and Tabitha wondered if she knew how much she was like the captain. Both were stupid enough to risk their lives for other people and get nothing out of it. It took longer than Tabitha expected for the robots to appear. And they moved with almost military precision, each holding a rifle. As they entered, Regan put one arm around Tabitha and pointed the gun at her head.
I control the command center. If you try to attack me, I'll kill the commander.
Tabitha hoped the combat programming was still subpar because the military programming of this robot would have it shoot Regan in the head. But this robot hesitated.
Can you break free?
Regan asked. Tabitha simply reached up and grabbed Regan's wrist. The hardest part was taking the gun away from Regan without hurting her. Once she had the gun, she pointed it at Regan and said,
You are under arrest. Guards, take her into custody so she can face justice and pay for her crimes.
A robot grabbed her. Another grabbed Alonzo, who Tabitha had almost forgotten was there. The robot then said,
Thank you for playing our scenario. We now hope that you understand the corporations are here to help you.
The 5 combat robots then turned and walked back towards the ship they had come from.
Wait, that's it? We just surrender?
Alonzo said.
Sure. It might be dangerous, but it was still a game. Once we lost, it was over,
Regan said. Author's note.
I like a good holodeck episode. And one of the most important things about the holodeck is that nothing can leave it. But while that makes sense in Star Trek, the Commonwealth technology is a bit less advanced, but in some ways that makes it more dangerous. And I thought having them chase them onto the other station was fun. So much of this episode is a holodeck episode outside of the holodeck. Beyond that, I enjoyed the lighter tone of this episode, and focusing a bit more on character growth than I do in a lot of the others. I hope all of you enjoyed it as well. Thank you. Elton Gar.